and welcome to BioStock Studio. It's safe to say it's been a very busy summer for Biovica with a ninth work order from the company's leading pharma customer, an expanded next generation oncology agreement, Japanese patent, and of course the end of the Tempus collaboration, and now recently a framework agreement with a leading US cancer center. And to dig into all of this and what it means for the company, we are joined by the CEO, Theis Kipling. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So, like I said, a very busy summer, and now we're sort of heading into the autumn term. You last visited us in the studio back in June when you quite recently taken over as the CEO. How much of what we sort of talked about then and what you outlined back in June would you say has now sort of come into play?
You're right. Summer was great, very busy. I think we made a lot of progress. And where we are now on the plan and versus what I spoke about when I was last year in June, I think we are essentially right on plan, maybe a little bit ahead of the plan. I think we have done a lot of great impact this far on strategy and focus. So I'm standing here very happy with the progress.
That's how you want to feel after a busy summer, right?
Absolutely.
So one of sort of the key numbers is that the pharma services grew with 72% over last year. And like I said, you've landed this ninth work order plus an expanded master agreement in next generation cell cycle therapies. Mm-hmm. What would you say is driving this repeat business specifically, and what do you need to sort of keep this momentum going?
Yeah, so these results we posted here in the past couple of months are actually, our efforts from the team and the doings of the past, essentially. And what we're seeing now is that the biomarker is really gaining traction. We are establishing as a highly trustworthy biomarker that gains confidence. And with confidence, you see this type of pattern that you get the repeated orders, and that's essentially these are the fruits of past doings, and I think there's a lot more to come.
I also wanted to talk a little bit about the results that were published in Clinical Cancer Research, which this sort of brings you a concrete peer-reviewed example that you can bring to drug developers. Would you say that data has already begun to open doors with companies that maybe you have not been in dialogue with before? Or I also wanted you to maybe talk a bit about how the upcoming phase 2 readout changes how you interact and pitch to these potential partners.
Yeah, I think if we start with has it opened up doors, I would say definitely yes. When I look into the funnel, this business is really on a roll when we look on the pharma side. That being said, nothing happens overnight, so this is going to be, very focused work for the next several years. But what we are seeing is this upward trend. But that's great. We're attracting more and more pharma partners, and the pharma partners we're working with, they keep coming back. For me, that's really, really good. Then we had this publication, which was another great publication, and in that one, exploratory study with a combination of different drugs. But what I took from it was those who responded well and came out well in that study, they had low TKa measures all the way with them throughout the study. And unfortunately, you can say those who didn't respond, it was very clear because they kept a high TKa level. So, and I think that further substantiates the biomarker that we have, and that's also why pharma keeps adding on their interest.
I wanted to also ask you about the end of the Tempus collaboration that came in June, and then just a few weeks after that, you signed this framework agreement with NCI designated Comprehensive Cancer Center, which was sort of on your own terms then. So this is the model that you intend to use going forward rather than the older model?
Yes, for the time being, let me put it like that. We're in the phase of the earlier part of the adoption. And in that phase, we work towards what we refer to as academic institutions. These are the institutions that publish, do a lot of research and release publications. And that's where we can, on our own, we can manage that really well. And that you need to be really tight in the relations. You need to have very deep competence. But we don't need the kind of the wide sales force at this point in time. Then keep in mind that within the academic institutions, typically you only see that they cover 20% of the patient population within breast cancer. That means 80% sits in the community setting. But for that same reason, we believe that for the next immediate future, we can cover that segment ourselves, and then we'll decide on how we will reach those, the bigger market, the 80% of the population. But once we have the data, and once we have the guideline support, and once we feel that we're ready now to challenge, that market in that sense.
And if we look a little bit at the wider strategy, you are sort of winding down the EU distribution to prioritize the US. Could you talk a little bit about what the European strategy looks like going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a deliberate strategic choice, winding down on the EU and Europe investments. And that has actually contributed quite significantly on cost savings also. So there's a lot of cost that we don't have to take. There's also staff that we don't need to keep. So in that sense, we here on the short term, we take that as a cost benefit and lowering the cash burn. It helps us focus even more on the priority the only priority we have, which is the US market essentially. But it's not the same as saying we're not going to come back to Europe. I think there will definitely be a time where we will re-engage with the European market, as we are also considering markets outside Europe. But right now, it's execution mode, focusing on what matters, and here it's breaking through the adoption curve in the US.
Staying a little bit with the geographic sort of diversification potentially then, or right now you're focusing on the US, but you did also get a patent in Japan in immuno-oncology, and you've mentioned pharma interest coming from Asia and Europe as well. So in terms of broader geographics and therapeutic diversification, how important is that, and sort of versus staying tightly focused on the US?
If we make the assumption that one of these many programs that we have with the many pharma partners we also have, that one of them will become a truly commercial products, they're going to want to go in across all markets, right? And today I know, and I can see that we are already having quite a number of clinical trial efforts in China, as an example. Japan is a huge market, especially for pharma, could be for us in that case also. So what we are working with strategically on the patent side is making sure that we secure ourselves, but also that we broaden the possibilities that we have. And that's what you saw with that patent that was granted for Japan.
So as a final question then, if we're back here in a year, well, I hope it doesn't take a whole year until you're back here, but in a year, what do you feel that Biovica needs to have sort of proven to the market to show that you've really taken those steps forward that you want to take?
Yeah, I also hope I will be re-invited before a year from now, because I think we will look at a year that is going to be exceedingly busy and with lots of great positive news. And standing here in a year's time, I believe that we have substantiated that the business works, right? We have also de-risked the business. And that means in the pharma arm, we have secured very significant contracts. We have added on a whole new layer of tier one pharma accounts. And hopefully in a year's time, we're actually either at or close to engaging on a CDX collaboration project. That will improve the pharma business and also prove that the biomarker really works. On the US oncology services side, I think in a year's time, we will also see that we have gotten a lot further in terms of generating the evidence we need towards the guidelines. And that can only happen if we have really embraced and started to collaborate even more broadly with these academic institutions. So I think those two together will prove the business. It would also be a significant de-risk proof of the business. And doing that alongside the cost containment program we're working on, preserving cash balance, reducing the cash burn on a monthly basis, all that together, I think will make us stand on a much more stronger, but also future promising platform when we look a year out.
Well, with so much happening in an upcoming year, then I promise you we'll see you back here before a year has passed. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. I look forward to it. Thank you.